The rain fell hard on Threshold 9 that night. Dae-sung walked through the forest near his farm, checking the fence line as he did every evening. The trees bent in the wind and lightning split the dark sky. He pulled his coat tighter and kept moving. Then he heard it, a small sound almost lost in the storm, a whimper. Something in pain. Dae-sung stopped and listened. There it was again. He turned on his flashlight and pushed through the wet bushes. The beam of light found something in a hollow between two rocks. A creature, small, covered in dark fur, shaking. Dae-sung's breath caught in his throat. He knew what this was. Everyone in the galaxy knew what a Varak looked like, even the babies. The cub was dying. Its fur was matted with mud and something else. Chemical burns covered its small body. Someone had hurt this creature and left it here to die. The cub's eyes opened slightly, showing fear and pain. It tried to growl, but the sound was weak. Dae-sung knelt down slowly. His mind raced. Varaks were the most dangerous predators in the known galaxy. Adult Varaks stood 9 feet tall and could tear through metal with their claws. They were the Empire's soldiers, their enforcers. Every species feared them. This was just a baby, but it would grow. It would become something terrifying. He should walk away. That was the smart thing to do. That was the safe thing to do. But Dae-sung looked at the small creature shaking in the rain, and he could not leave. He had lost his own family 3 years ago in an accident. He knew what it felt like to be alone and helpless. He reached out his hand slowly. The cub snapped at him, tiny teeth clicking together. Dae-sung pulled back just in time. "I know," he said softly. "I know you are scared. I want to help." He took off his coat and wrapped it around the cub carefully. The creature fought weakly, but it had no strength left. Dae-sung picked it up, feeling how light it was, how fragile. He turned and ran back through the rain toward his house. His neighbor Hana saw him from her window. She came out onto her porch as he passed. "Dae-sung, what do you have there?" He did not stop. "Something that needs help." "Wait," Hana ran after him. She caught up as he reached his door. Her eyes went wide when she saw what he carried. "No, no, no, no. Tell me that is not what I think it is." "It is dying, Hana. It is a Varak. Do you understand what you are doing? If the Empire finds out you took one of their kind, they will arrest you. Or worse," Dae-sung looked at her. "I cannot leave it to die. It is not an it. That thing is a weapon. That is what they breed them to be. Right now it is just a baby who is hurt." He went inside and closed the door. Hana stood in the rain, shaking her head, but she did not leave. After a moment, she followed him in. Dae-sung laid the cub on his medical table. He was a xenobiologist. He had studied many alien species before he came to this colony world to farm. His equipment was old but still worked. He scanned the cub's body. The results made him angry. The burns were not accidents. Someone had poured acid on this creature. The cub was also starving. It had been without food for days, maybe weeks. "They threw it away," he said quietly, "because it was too small, too weak." Hana watched from the doorway. "That is their culture. Only the strong survive. The weak are left behind. That is cruel. That is nature. We are better than nature." Dae-sung began cleaning the wounds. The cub cried out in pain. The sound cut through him, but he kept working. He applied medicine and bandages. He set up a feeding tube because the cub was too weak to eat on its own. For 3 days, Dae-sung did not sleep. He stayed by the cub's side, monitoring its vital signs, adjusting treatments. Hana came by with food and coffee. She still thought he was making a terrible mistake, but she helped anyway. That was what neighbors did. On the 4th day, the cub opened its eyes fully for the first time. It looked at Dae-sung with intelligence and confusion. Where was it? Who was this strange creature caring for it? Dae-sung smiled. "Hello, little one. You're safe now." The cub tried to bite him. Its teeth caught his arm, drawing blood. Dae-sung pulled back with a grunt of pain but did not strike the creature. He wrapped his arm and spoke calmly. "I understand. You do not trust me yet. That is okay." Over the next weeks, the pattern repeated. The cub grew stronger. It also grew more aggressive. It was a predator, and its instincts told it that Dae-sung was prey. The creature attacked him again and again. Dae-sung's arms became covered in scratches and bite marks. Hana begged him to give up. "It will kill you eventually. You know this." "No," Dae-sung said, bandaging another wound. "It is scared. I just need to show it that I am not a threat." "You are not a threat. You are food." That is what it sees. But Dae-sung did not give up. He studied everything he could find about Varak behavior. He learned their body language. He learned what their different sounds meant. He watched how the cub moved and reacted. Slowly, he began to understand. Varaks were not just killers. They were intelligent. They had complex emotions. They communicated in subtle ways. The cub was not attacking out of pure instinct. It was testing him. It was trying to understand what he wanted. Daesung changed his approach. He stopped treating the cub like a pet or a patient. He started treating it like a person. He talked to it constantly, explaining what he was doing. He asked permission before touching it. He gave it choices about food and where to sleep. The change was gradual. The attacks became less frequent. The cub started watching him with curiosity instead of just fear. One evening, Daesung sat on the floor reading. The cub approached slowly. It sniffed his hand. Then it took a piece of food from his palm without biting him. Daesung's heart soared. 2 months after he found the cub, something remarkable happened. Daesung was working at his desk when he felt something warm against his leg. He looked down. The cub had curled up against him and fallen asleep. Tears filled Daesung's eyes. He reached down slowly and gently touched the cub's head. It did not wake up. It trusted him. "You need a name," Daesung whispered. "I will call you Rix." Hana came by the next morning and found them sleeping together on the floor. She stood in the doorway for a long time, watching. When Daesung woke up, she was crying. "What is wrong?" he asked. "Nothing is wrong," she said. "I just realized something. You did not save that creature. You two saved each other." Daesung looked down at Rick, still sleeping peacefully against him. She was right. For 3 years he had been alone with his grief. Now he had someone to care for, someone who needed him. Outside, the sun rose over the farm. Inside, a human and a Varak predator slept side by side. It was the beginning of something the galaxy had never seen before. It was the beginning of a friendship that would shake an empire. 3 years passed on Threshold 9, and everything changed. Rix was no longer a small cub. He stood 6 feet tall now, with powerful muscles and claws that could cut through wood like paper. His fur was dark gray and his eyes were sharp and intelligent. When he moved, people could hear the power in his steps. But Rix was different from other Varaks. He helped Daesung work on the farm every morning. He carried heavy equipment carefully. He fixed fences with his strong hands. When the colony children came to visit, he played with them gently, always aware of his strength. The colonists had been afraid at first. A Varak living among them? It seemed dangerous. But over time they saw what Daesung saw. Rix was kind. He was thoughtful. He chose to be gentle even though he could be deadly. Young-ho was a teenager who came to the farm every day after school. He wanted to be a xenobiologist like Daesung. He helped feed Rix and clean his living space. Sometimes they studied together. "Why do you read so much?" Young-ho asked one afternoon. Rix was sitting under a tree with 3 books stacked beside him. Rix looked up. His voice was deep but careful. "I want to understand things. Why people act the way they do. Why the universe works as it does. Books help me learn," Young-ho smiled. "You are smarter than most humans I know." "I am different from most Varaks," Rix said quietly. "Sometimes I wonder what that means." Daesung heard this conversation from the house. It worried him. Rix was struggling with his identity. He was a Varak who did not act like a Varak. He was raised by humans but would never be human. Where did he belong? One evening, everything changed. A ship landed near the colony. It was a military vessel from the Varak Empire. Commander Thek stepped out with 4 soldiers behind him. He was a typical Varak warrior, tall, covered in scars, moving with predatory grace. He came to the colony administration building and demanded to speak with Bora, the administrator. Bora was a calm woman who had led the colony for 10 years. She met Thex in her office. "Commander, welcome to Threshold 9. What brings the Empire to our small colony?" Thex's eyes were cold. "We received reports of an irregularity here. A Varak living among humans. This violates multiple laws and customs." Bora kept her face neutral. "The Varak you speak of was found dying and abandoned. A colonist saved his life. He has broken no laws. He exists," Thex said. "That is enough. All Varaks belong to the Empire. We are too valuable to waste among lesser species." "Lesser species?" Bora's voice grew hard. "Commander, please remember you are a guest here. I am not a guest. I am an officer of the Empire, and I am here to take back what belongs to us." Word spread quickly through the colony. Thex was coming for Rix. Daesung stood in front of his house with Hana beside him. Young Ho ran up, breathing hard. "They are coming," the boy said. "Commander Thex and his soldiers." Rix stepped out of the house. He had heard everything. "I will go with them," he said quietly. "I do not want anyone hurt because of me." "No," Daesung said firmly. "You are not property. You are a person. You get to choose where you belong, do I?" Rix looked at his hands, at his claws. "I am Varric. Maybe they are right. Maybe I should be with my own kind." "Your own kind?" Hana said. "Your own kind left you to die. Daesung is your family now." Thex arrived with his soldiers. He stopped when he saw Rix. For a moment, the commander just stared. Then his face twisted with disgust. "This is wrong," Thex said. "Look at you. You bow your head. You stand behind a human. You have no pride." Rix met his eyes. "I have pride, but I also have respect. These are not the same thing. You speak like them. You think like them. You have been contaminated." "I have been educated," Rix replied calmly. "I have learned that strength without wisdom is just violence. I have learned that power without purpose is meaningless." Thex turned to Daesung. "You did this. You broke him. You took a warrior and made him into a pet." Daesung's voice was steady. "I took a dying child and gave him a chance to live. What he became was his own choice. Varracs do not get to choose. We are what we are bred to be." "That is slavery," Hana said. "You are describing slavery." The soldiers behind Thex shifted uncomfortably. They had never heard anyone speak to their commander this way. Bora arrived with a dozen colonists. They formed a line between Thex and Rix. "Commander," Bora said, "I cannot allow you to take Rix by force. He has committed no crime. He is a resident of this colony and under our protection." Thex's hand moved to his weapon. The soldiers did the same. The tension grew thick. Rix stepped forward, moving past Daesung and the others. "Stop, please, I do not want violence." He looked at Thex directly. "I will go with you to speak with your superiors, but only if Daesung can come as my guardian." "Guardian?" Thex's voice was full of contempt. "A human cannot be guardian to a Varrac. That is an insult to everything we are." "Then it is a good thing I am not like other Varracs," Rix said. "These are my terms. Accept them or leave." The two Varracs stood facing each other. One was everything the Empire wanted. Strong, aggressive, unquestioning. The other was something new. Something that asked questions and made choices. Thex was trapped. He could attack, but that would mean fighting colonists and possibly killing Rix in the process. The Empire would ask questions, or he could accept Rix's terms and take the matter to higher authority. "Fine," Thex said finally. "You and the human will come to Varric Prime. The High Arbiter will decide your fate." "Our fate," Daesung corrected. "We stay together." Thex ignored him and turned to his soldiers. "Prepare the ship. We leave in 1 hour." As the soldiers walked away, Young Ho grabbed Rix's arm. "Do not go. They will not let you come back." Rix knelt down to the boy's level. "I must go. If I do not, they will keep coming. More soldiers. More threats. Someone will get hurt. This is the only way." Hana hugged Daesung. "Be careful. The Empire does not forgive easily." Daesung packed a small bag. He included medical supplies, his research notes, and a photo of his family. Rix watched him. "Are you afraid?" Rix asked. "Yes," Daesung admitted. "But fear is not a reason to stop doing what is right." "You taught me that," Rix said. "You taught me many things. Now I must show the Empire what I learned." They walked to the ship together. The colonists came to see them off. Some were crying. Children waved goodbye to Rix. He raised his hand carefully, trying to smile. As the ship lifted into the sky, Daesung looked out the window at the colony growing smaller below. He thought about the small dying cub he had found in the rain. That cub was gone. In his place was someone remarkable, someone who could change everything. He just hoped the Empire would see it too. Thex sat across from them in the ship, watching with cold eyes. "You have made a mistake, human. You have interfered with forces you do not understand. The Empire has existed for thousands of years. It will not change because you showed kindness to one Varric." Daesung met his gaze calmly. "Every great change starts with one person choosing differently. Rix is not just one Varric. He is proof that your kind can be more than what you make them." "We do not want to be more," Thex said. "We are already perfect," Rix spoke quietly. "If you were perfect, you would not fear me so much." The commander had no answer to that. He turned away and said nothing else for the rest of the journey. The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward Varric Prime, toward a trial that would shake the foundations of an empire, toward a choice that billions would have to make. Rix looked at Daesung, the human who saved him, the father who taught him, the friend who stood beside him even now. "Thank you," Rix said simply. Daesung smiled. "For what?" "For showing me I could choose who I wanted to be." Outside the window, the stars blurred past. Inside the ship, a human and a Varric faced an uncertain future together. But they faced it as family. Varric Prime was a world of stone and metal. The buildings were massive and sharp, built to show power. Every street was filled with Varric warriors. Daesung felt very small walking among them. The trial was held in the Grand Hall of Justice. Thousands could watch from seats rising up the walls. Every seat was full. This case had become famous across the Empire. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. High Arbiter Vosh entered the hall and everyone stood. He was ancient, over 300 years old. His fur was white with age, and scars covered his body from countless battles. He moved slowly but with great dignity. When he sat in the judge's chair, the room went silent. "This is an unusual case," Vosh said. His voice was deep and carried through the hall. "A Varric raised by humans. It should not be possible. Yet here we are. Let us hear the arguments." The prosecutor was a Varric named Drax. He stood tall and spoke with confidence. "High Arbiter, this is simple. Rix is Varric property. He belongs to the Empire from birth. This human stole him and corrupted him. Look at what Rix has become. He is weak, he is soft. He reads books instead of training for war. He plays with prey species children. He is an embarrassment to our kind." Drax showed videos on large screens. First, traditional Varric warriors training. They fought with incredible skill and power. They showed no mercy. They were magnificent and terrifying. Then he showed videos of Rix. Rix helping children with homework. Rix reading under a tree. Rix carefully carrying a basket of fruit so he would not crush it. The crowd murmured. Many Varrics looked disgusted. This was not how a Varric should behave. "The human has broken him," Drax continued. "He has taken a weapon and turned it into a servant. This cannot be allowed. Rix must be taken from the human and retrained properly. If that is not possible, he should be eliminated." Daesung felt cold when he heard eliminated. They wanted to kill Rix just for being different. The defense was led by Counselor Taewon, a human diplomat who had worked with the Empire for 20 years. He was old with gray hair and kind eyes. Beside him was Dr. Mira, a xenopsychologist who studied alien minds. Taewon stood and spoke calmly. "High Arbiter, we are not here to defend theft." Daesung found an abandoned cub who was dying. He saved a life. The question is not whether Rix is Varric property. The question is whether any sentient being should be treated as property at all. The crowd erupted. Varric shouted in anger. "How dare a human question their ways?" Vosh raised his hand for silence. "Continue, Counselor. Rix has intelligence.
He has feelings.
He makes choices. These are the marks of a person, not a thing. The Empire claims all Varrics belong to them from birth. But sentient beings should have rights. They should have freedom to choose their own path." Dr. Mira approached with her evidence. "I have studied Rix extensively. His brain has developed differently because of how he was raised. Look at these scans." She showed images of brain activity. The areas connected to empathy and complex thinking are much more developed than in typical Varrics. He is not broken. He has evolved. He represents new possibilities for your species. Drax stood quickly. "We do not want these possibilities. We are warriors. We are strong. That is our purpose." "Who decided that purpose?" Taewon asked. "Did Rix get to choose? Does any Varric get to choose? Or are you all forced into one path from birth?" The questions hung in the air. Some young Varrics in the crowd looked thoughtful. Others looked angry. During breaks in the trial, Rix was kept in military barracks. Another young Varric named Kar was assigned to watch him. Kar was a perfect warrior. Strong, disciplined, loyal. He did not understand Rix at all. On the third night, Kar could not help himself. "Why do you act this way? You could be great. You could be feared. Instead, you are weak." Rix looked at him. "I am not weak. I can fight. I have the same strength and speed as you, but I choose not to use it unless necessary." "Choice is weakness," Kar said. "Warriors do not question. We act. And who does that serve?" Rix asked. "When you fight, who benefits? When you kill, who gives the orders? You think you are strong, but you are just a tool. Someone else decides when and where you are used. Carr wanted to argue, but the words troubled him. He had never thought about it before. He did what he was told. That was the way. The human taught you these ideas, Carr said. He poisoned your mind. He freed my mind, Rix replied. He showed me that being powerful means protecting the weak, not dominating them. He showed me that being strong means having the discipline to choose mercy. They talked late into the night. Other young Varaks in the barracks listened quietly. These ideas were dangerous. They were also fascinating. The trial continued for days. Expert after expert testified. Some said Rix was broken. Others said he was extraordinary. The Empire was divided. Then came the turning point. Drax decided to prove that Rix was weak. He brought another Varak into the hall, a warrior trained to kill. This is what a real Varak looks like, Drax said. Let us see if your evolved specimen can face him. Taiwan objected immediately. This is not a combat trial. I am not asking them to fight, Drax said smoothly. I just want to see how Rix reacts to a true warrior. The warrior approached Rix slowly, growling. It was a display of dominance. Rix should either submit or challenge him. Those were the only two responses a Varak knew. Rix did neither. He stood calmly and spoke. I am not afraid of you, but I am not interested in proving strength through violence. If you need to hurt me to feel powerful, then you are the weak one. The warrior struck him, fast and hard. Rix flew backward and hit the floor. Blood ran from his mouth. The crowd waited. Would he fight? Would he run? Rix stood up slowly. He wiped the blood away. He could have attacked. Everyone there knew he had the ability. But he did not. I could fight you, Rix said clearly. I could hurt you. But what would that prove? That I can be violent? Everyone knows that. The real question is whether I can choose not to be violent when I am angry. That takes more strength than any battle. He turned away from the warrior and walked back to his place. The warrior looked confused. He had been trained for every response except this one. Rix addressed the High Arbiter directly. You think I am weak because I was raised by humans. But humans taught me something Varaks never learned. They taught me that power without wisdom is just destruction. They taught me that the strongest person is the one who protects others, not the one who hurts them. They taught me that being civilized means choosing reason over instinct. He gestured to Daesung. This human found me dying. I was nothing to him, helping me put him in danger. But he did it anyway because he believes every life has value. That belief is stronger than any weapon. It is what makes humans special. They care. The hall was silent. Rix's words echoed through the space. I am Varak. I will always be Varak, but I am also more than what you made me. I can choose peace. I can choose learning. I can choose friends over enemies. You call that weakness. I call it evolution. High Arbiter Vosh sat very still. His ancient eyes watched Rix with an expression no one could read. Finally he spoke. The court will consider this carefully. We will deliver our verdict in 3 days. Those 3 days felt like years. Daesung and Rix waited in a secured room. Taiwan visited them. Whatever happens, the counselor said, you have already changed things. Young Varaks are asking questions they never asked before. That matters. On the 3rd day they returned to the Grand Hall. Every seat was full again. High Arbiter Vosh entered and sat. I have reached a decision, he said. His voice was grave. This case has forced me to examine truths I thought were absolute. I have seen evidence that challenges everything our society believes. He looked at Rix. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are different. And that difference is not a crime. Hope rose in Daesung's chest. However, Vosh continued, you cannot remain as you are. The Empire cannot accept a Varak who rejects our ways. Therefore, I am removing your status as a citizen of the Varak Empire. You are no longer Varak in the eyes of the law. You are other. You are without a people. Gasps filled the hall. This had never been done before. You may remain with the human Daesung, but you have no protection from the Empire, no rights. You exist outside our society. Rick stood tall. I accept this judgment. Vosh looked troubled. I do not know if I have made the right choice. Time will tell. This court is dismissed. As they left the hall, Carr found them in the corridor. The young warrior looked different, uncertain. What you said in there, Carr said quietly, about having choices, about being more than weapons. Some of us have been thinking about it. Rix put a hand on his shoulder. Then my exile was worth it. If even one Varak starts asking questions, things will change. They left Varak Prime that day. Day, Sung, and Rix together again. But the galaxy was watching now. The verdict had been broadcast everywhere. And in the barracks, in the training grounds, young Varaks whispered to each other, what if he was right? What if they could be more? The verdict spread like fire across the Empire. Rix was free to live with humans, but he was no longer considered Varak. The decision satisfied no one. Human colonies celebrated. Rix became a symbol of hope. If even the Empire's most dangerous predators could choose peace, then anything was possible. Children wore shirts with his image. Artists painted murals of a Varak reading books or helping farmers. But among the Varaks, the reaction was split in two. The older generation saw Rix as a warning. This is what happens when you allow weakness, they said. This is what happens when you question the old ways. Military leaders called for stricter training, harsher discipline. They wanted to make sure no other Varak would ever choose Rix's path. The younger Varaks reacted differently. They had watched the trial. They had heard Rix speak about choices and purpose. Some of them began to wonder, what if there was more to life than fighting? What if they could choose their own path? A secret group formed. They called themselves the Silent Cohort. They met in hidden places and discussed forbidden ideas: freedom, education, peace. Among them was Kar, the warrior who had guarded Rix during the trial. Back on Threshold 9, life tried to return to normal. Daesung worked his farm. Rix helped him as always. Young-ho came by every day after school, but everything felt different now. The galaxy was watching them. Jinwoo was a human journalist who came to interview them. He was young and idealistic, with a camera and a dream of telling important stories. The people need to hear from you directly, Jinwoo said, setting up his equipment. The Empire controls most of the information. But independent media can spread the truth. He recorded hours of footage. Daesung talking about the night he found Rix. Rix explaining his philosophy of strength through restraint. The daily life of a farm where a human and a Varak worked side by side. Jinwoo's broadcasts went viral. Millions watched. Billions discussed. The silent cohort grew larger. This terrified the military leaders. General Vex, the head of the Varak armed forces, saw the danger clearly. If Varaks could be pacified, if they could learn empathy and restraint, they would lose their edge. They would become weak. The Empire's power was built on Varak warriors. Without them, everything would collapse. Vex called a secret meeting with other hardline leaders. This cannot continue. Rix must be eliminated. The human too. We must send a message that this path leads only to death. They sent assassins. 3 elite Varak warriors trained killers with no mercy. They traveled to Threshold 9 in secret and attacked at night. Daesung was working in his study when the window exploded. A Varak warrior came through, claws extended. Daesung had time to shout one word, Rix. The warrior was fast, but not fast enough. Rix came through the door like thunder. He collided with the assassin and they crashed through a wall. 2 more warriors entered from other directions. Daesung grabbed a tool from his desk. It was not a weapon, but he had to try. He swung at the nearest warrior. The Varak caught his arm and twisted. Bones snapped. Daesung screamed. Rix heard that scream. Something inside him broke. He had spent years learning control, learning restraint, learning to be gentle. But Daesung was hurt. The only father he had ever known was in danger. The restraint vanished. What happened next was terrible and magnificent. Rix moved like a true Varak warrior, like the killing machine his species was bred to be. He was faster than thought, stronger than steel. The first assassin died in seconds, throat torn out. The second tried to run. Rix caught him at the door. The third warrior fought well, but it was not enough. Rix was fighting for something the assassin did not have. He was fighting for love. When it was over, 3 bodies lay on the floor. Rix stood among them, covered in blood. His claws were extended. His eyes were wild. He looked like every nightmare the galaxy had about Varaks. Then he saw Daesung lying against the wall, holding his broken arm. The wildness left Rix's eyes. He rushed to the human side. I am sorry, Rix said, his voice breaking. I tried not to. I tried to control it. But they hurt you. Daesung looked up at him with pain and understanding. You protected me. That is what family does. Medics arrived within minutes. So did Hana and Young-ho and half the colony. They found Rix sitting beside Daesung, tears running down his face. A Varak crying. It was something most people had never seen. The whole thing had been recorded by security cameras. Jin Woo had that footage within hours. He broadcast it across the galaxy with careful commentary. "This is what they tried to hide," Jin Woo said in his report. "Yes, Rick's killed. But look at when and why. He did not hunt. He did not kill for pleasure or dominance. He defended someone he loved. And then he wept for what he had to do. This is not a broken Varric, this is an evolved one who understands the weight of violence." The footage went viral. Billions watched a Varric crying over a wounded human. The image was powerful. It changed minds. Admiral Seo Jun, commander of the human fleet, contacted Counselor Tae-wan immediately. They met in a secure location. "The situation is becoming dangerous," Seo Jun said. She was a veteran officer with gray in her hair and steel in her eyes. "Our intelligence suggests the Empire is fracturing. Conservative Varrics want Rix dead and will keep trying. But progressive Varrics are rallying around him as a symbol. We are seeing protests on multiple worlds." Tae-wan looked worried. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that we are preparing evacuation plans for human colonies in Varric space. If this turns into civil war, millions could die." The silent cohort was no longer silent. Led by Carr, they began openly challenging their commanders. They refused to participate in certain missions. They demanded the right to choose their own paths. Military leaders tried to crush the rebellion. They arrested dozens of young Varrics. They increased punishments. But the movement kept growing. On one world, a group of Varric students refused to enter combat training. They sat in peaceful protest, demanding access to universities instead. Their commander ordered them to disperse. They refused. The commander ordered his troops to attack the protesters. But half the troops refused to follow that order. Varric warriors standing against other Varric warriors, not with violence but with resistance. The commander did not know what to do. This had never happened before. Dae-sung recovered from his injuries, but his arm would never work quite right again. He did not blame Rix, he blamed the assassins. He blamed the system that made those assassins. "We cannot go on like this," Dae-sung said one evening. They sat on the porch watching the sunset. "The Empire is tearing itself apart. It is my fault," Rick said quietly. "No." Dae-sung's voice was firm. "You are not responsible for how others react to your existence. You did nothing wrong. You just chose to be yourself. Sometimes being yourself is dangerous." "Always," Dae-sung agreed. "But it is still necessary." Jin-woo arrived with news. His broadcast had been banned on 20 worlds. Conservative governments did not want their people seeing his reports. But that only made people more determined to find them. Underground networks spread the footage. Secret meetings discussed the ideas. "You have started something that cannot be stopped," Jin-woo told them. "The question now is whether it will end in reform or in war." Messages began arriving from across the Empire. Other young Varrics asking questions. How did Rix learn control? How did he find purpose beyond fighting? Could they learn too? Rix tried to answer them all. He recorded messages explaining his philosophy. Study everything. Question everything. Choose your own values. Strength is meaningless without a reason to be strong. The silent cohort grew to thousands, then tens of thousands. They were still a minority, but they were loud. They were brave. They were willing to risk everything for the chance to be more than weapons. General Vex and his allies made a final decision. They would crush this rebellion with overwhelming force. They gathered loyal troops and prepared to attack worlds where the protests were strongest. But they made a mistake. They announced their plans publicly, trying to scare people into submission. The announcement had the opposite effect. Moderate Varrics, who had been uncertain, now saw the truth. The old guard was willing to kill their own people to maintain control. That was not strength. That was fear. More warriors joined the silent cohort. More officers refused orders. The fracture became a chasm. Empress Vel, who ruled the Empire from her throne world, watched all of this in silence. She was ancient, powerful, mysterious. No one knew what she was thinking. Admiral Seo Jun contacted Dae-sung and Rix. "I've been ordered to evacuate you. The situation is too dangerous. You should leave Threshold 9 immediately." Rix looked at Dae-sung. They both knew what this meant. If they ran, they would look weak. The movement would lose its symbol. "We stay," Dae-sung said. "That is insane," Seo Jun replied. "They will try to kill you again." "Probably," Dae-sung agreed. But running now would mean all of this was for nothing. We stay, we keep speaking the truth. Whatever happens, happens. Rix put his hand on Dae-sung's shoulder. They had faced death before. They would face it again, together. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next, waiting to see if an empire built on violence could learn to embrace peace, waiting to see if one human and one Verak could change everything. The answer was coming, and it would shake worlds. Not with fire, but with conflict. On a dozen worlds, Verak warriors fought each other. The old guard tried to crush the rebellion with force. The silent cohort resisted with courage. Human colonies were caught in the middle, trying to protect themselves from both sides. Dae-sung watched the news reports with a heavy heart. This was not what he wanted. He had just tried to save a dying cub. Now the galaxy was at war because of it. "It is not your fault," Hana told him one morning. "These problems were always there. You just forced everyone to face them." Rick stood by the window, looking out at the farm. He had not slept well in weeks. Young Veraks were dying in the fighting, dying because they believed in the ideas he represented. "I should go to them," Rick said. "I should try to stop this." "And say what?" Dae-sung asked gently. "Stop fighting for your freedom? Go back to being slaves?" They would not listen. "Then what do we do?" Before Dae-sung could answer, a message arrived. It came on official channels with the highest priority. The message was simple and shocking. Empress Vel requested their presence, both of them. On her throne world, Admiral Seo-jun called immediately. This could be a trap. The Empress has not spoken publicly in 50 years. No one knows what she wants. Counselor Tae-wan was more optimistic, or she has been watching everything, waiting for the right moment to act. Either way, you have to go. This might be the only chance to end the fighting. Captain Kyung-suk commanded the human ship that would take them. She was tough and experienced, with cold eyes and quick reflexes. "My orders are to get you there safely and extract you if things go wrong. I have a full combat team ready." The journey to the throne world took 3 days. Rick spent the time preparing himself. He did not know if he would face judgment or execution, but he knew he had to try. Dae-sung wrote letters to Hana and Young-ho just in case. He told them how proud he was of them, how grateful he was for their friendship. He sealed the letters and gave them to Captain Kyung-suk. "Just in case," he said. The throne world was beautiful and terrible. Massive structures of crystal and metal rose into the sky. Gardens filled with dangerous plants spread between buildings. Everything showed power and control. They were brought to the palace under heavy guard. Not hostile, but careful. They walked through halls covered in art from 1,000 worlds. They passed rooms where the Empire's history was preserved in stone and metal. Finally, they reached the throne room. It was enormous. The ceiling disappeared into shadow above. The floor was polished black stone that reflected everything. At the far end, on a throne carved from a single piece of diamond, sat Empress Vel. She was the oldest living Verak. Some said she was over 500 years old. Her fur was pure white. Scars covered her body from centuries of battle, but her eyes were sharp and intelligent. She watched them approach with an expression that revealed nothing. Beside her stood representatives from the Council of Species, leaders from a dozen different worlds who had come to witness this meeting. Dae-sung and Rick stopped at the proper distance and bowed respectfully. "Approach," the Empress said. Her voice was quiet but carried through the hall like thunder. They walked forward until they stood directly before her. Vel studied them in silence for a long moment. Then she spoke. "You have caused me a great deal of trouble, human. That was not my intention, Empress. Intentions are meaningless. Results are what matter. My empire is fracturing. Warriors are questioning orders. Young Veraks are refusing their duties, all because you showed kindness to a dying cub." Dae-sung met her eyes steadily. "I would make the same choice again." "I know," Vel said. "That is what makes you dangerous. You act according to your values even when it costs you. That kind of integrity is rare. It is also disruptive," she turned to Rix. "And you, exiled from your own people, rejected by your species, yet you continue to speak about change and choice." Why, Rix's voice was calm. "Because I have lived both ways, Empress. I know what it is like to be raised as a weapon. I also know what it is like to be treated as a person. One way led to fear and pain. The other led to growth and purpose. I cannot go back to the first way even if it would be easier." "Easier," Vel repeated. "You think being a warrior is easier than what you do now?" "Yes," Rick said simply. "Following orders is easier than thinking for yourself." Obeying is easier than questioning. Violence is easier than restraint. The old way is a simple path. My way requires constant effort and choice, Vel stood. She was tall, even by Verak standards. She descended from her throne and walked toward them. The guards tensed, but she waved them back. She stopped in front of Daesung. You are fragile. I could kill you with one hand. Yes, Daesung agreed, yet you stand here without fear. Why? I am afraid, Daesung said honestly. But fear does not change what is right. Rix deserves a chance to live as he chooses. All Veraks do. If I must die to defend that principle, then that is what happens. Vel turned to the assembled representatives. You all wonder why I called this meeting. Why I broke my silence after decades. I will tell you. She walked to the center of the hall so everyone could see her. I am tired. I have ruled for 300 years. I have led armies. I have conquered worlds. I have enforced the Empire's will with claw and fang. And I am tired. Shocked whispers filled the hall. The Empress never showed weakness. I am tired of endless war, Vel continued. I am tired of raising generations of warriors who know nothing but violence. I am tired of an empire that measures worth only in strength and fear. When I was young, I thought this was the only way. Now I see a different possibility. She pointed to Rix. This one shows us what we could become. Not weak, not broken, but evolved. Capable of both war and peace, choosing which is needed. Having the power to destroy, but the wisdom to build instead. She turned to the council representatives. The trial of Rix was never about him. It was a test of whether the Empire could change, whether we could accept new ideas. Many failed that test. They responded with violence and fear. General Vex entered the hall with a group of hardline officers. This is treason, Empress! You cannot abandon our ways. I am not abandoning them, Vel said calmly. I am evolving them. Our ways have kept us alive. But they have also kept us isolated and feared. We have been weapons for so long we forgot we could be anything else. She issued her decree and her voice filled the hall with authority. From this day forward, all young Veraks will have a choice. They may train as warriors if they wish, but they may also study other paths. Science, art, philosophy, medicine. They will learn about the galaxy, about other species, about ideas beyond combat. This will make us weak, Vex shouted. No, Vel said firmly. This will make us complete. Strength without purpose is just destruction. We will still be strong, but we will also be wise. We will be feared less and respected more. Vex and his supporters moved to challenge her. It was a coup attempt, right there in the throne room. They thought other warriors would follow them, but Carr stepped forward with dozens of the silent cohort. They stood between Vel and the rebels, young warriors choosing their empress over their generals. The Empire has already chosen, Carr said. We follow Empress Vel. We follow the new way. The civil war was brief but brutal. Conservative forces fought desperately to maintain the old order. But more and more warriors joined the Empress's side. They saw that change was coming whether they wanted it or not. They could be part of that change or be crushed by it. Within 3 months it was over. Vex and his closest supporters were exiled. The reforms began. Daesung and Rix returned to Threshold 9 as heroes. But they did not want parades or celebrations. They just wanted to go home. 5 years passed. The galaxy transformed slowly. Virak children attended schools where they learned history and mathematics alongside combat training. Young Veraks traveled to other worlds, not as conquerors but as students and teachers. Art galleries on Virak Prime displayed paintings created by claws that once only knew how to kill. The silent cohort became the Silent Academy, dedicated to teaching young Veraks how to integrate their warrior heritage with philosophical and emotional development. Rix became a teacher there, traveling to Virak Prime several times a year, but he always came home to Threshold 9, to the farm, to Daesung. On a quiet evening, they sat on the porch as they had done thousands of times before. Daesung was older now, his hair completely gray. His bad arm ached in the cold, but he was content. A group of young Verak students were visiting the farm, learning about agriculture and seeing where their new culture began. They played carefully in the field, laughing and chasing each other. Hana came over with tea. She had aged too, but her sharp wit remained. She sat with them and shook her head in wonder. You picked up a dying cub and changed the galaxy, she said. Daesung smiled. I just showed him he had a choice. Rix watched the young Veraks playing. One of them tripped and fell. Instead of fighting or showing dominance, another helped him up. They laughed together and kept playing. They are so different from how I would have been, Rick said quietly. If you had not found me, I would be a warrior, following orders, knowing nothing but violence. I would have lived and died never knowing I could choose something else. You were always more than a warrior, Dae-sung said. I just helped you see it. Young-ho, now a young man studying xenobiology like his mentor, arrived with supplies for the students. He had helped Rix design the curriculum for the Silent Academy. He had devoted his life to building bridges between species. The Empire still has problems, Young-ho said, setting down his bags. Change is hard. Some Variks still resist. Some worlds still fear them. Change always has problems, Dae-sung agreed. But it is happening. That is what matters. An old message request appeared on Dae-sung's communication device. It was from Empress Vel. She sent one every few months asking for updates and advice. The ancient ruler and the simple farmer had become unlikely friends. What does she want this time? Hana asked. Dae-sung read the message and smiled. She is opening the first integrated university. She wants Rix to give a speech at the ceremony. Rix groaned. I hate giving speeches. You are good at them, Young-ho said. You speak from the heart. That is what people need to hear. As the sun set over Threshold 9, painting the sky in orange and purple, the group sat together in comfortable silence. A human, a Varak, and their family of friends. Once such a thing would have been impossible. Now it was just life. The Empire was still troubled by what had happened. Debates continued. Some believed the old ways were better. Others embraced the changes completely. Most people were somewhere in between, trying to figure out what it all meant. But the questions were being asked. The conversations were happening. Young Variks were growing up knowing they had choices. That was more than anyone had hoped for a few years ago. Rix looked at Dae-sung, the human who found him in the rain, the father who taught him, the friend who stood beside him through everything. Thank you, Rix said, as he had said so many times before. For what? Dae-sung asked, as he always did. For giving me the most powerful weapon anyone can have. What weapon is that? Rix smiled. The ability to decide who I wanted to become. The strength to choose my own path. The courage to be myself even when the galaxy said I should be something else. Dae-sung reached over and put his hand on Rix's arm. You were always yourself. I just helped you survive long enough to figure out who that was. The stars began appearing in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, millions of lives were being changed by the choices made on this small farm. Young Varaks were learning to read. Warriors were putting down weapons to pick up paintbrushes. An empire was learning that strength came in many forms. And it all started because one human could not walk past a dying child. No matter how dangerous that child might grow up to be, that decision still troubled the Empire. It would trouble them for generations. But it also gave them hope. Hope that change was possible. Hope that even the most rigid societies could evolve. Hope that showing mercy to one small creature could start a revolution. Dae-sung looked at Rix and smiled. He had saved one life. That life had saved thousands more. That was enough. That was more than enough. As night fell on Threshold 9, the farm was peaceful. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The Empire would continue struggling with its transformation. But tonight there was just a family sitting together under the stars. And that was everything.